Warning: the following video contains explicit language, which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready? Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Hope everybody is having a great weekend. It was kind of rainy here today, but it started to clear up at about 5 o'clock, and still cloudy, but the sun was peeking out, so I don't know. Maybe things will be better tomorrow. So I got a video here I want you all to watch. It's about 15-16 minutes long, I guess, and it has some information on the presidential immunity case that's against Trump, that's still developing, and I think it's some good what's going on now with it kind of information. So let's go to that, and we'll go to a commercial break after, and then we'll continue there. So let's go to the video.
This is Michael Popak, Legal AF. The Department of Justice 71, Donald Trump 0. Is it a score in a game? Sort of. 71 witnesses are testifying against Donald Trump, at least, in the D.C. election interference criminal case. How do I know that? Because of the new filing that we just got our hands on that have been revealed by Judge Chutkan, which identify from 1 to 71 all of the witnesses that are going to be testifying or have testified already to grand juries and or to Jack Smith in his investigation, who will be corroborating and first-person precipient witnesses with knowledge testifying against Donald Trump. And if you to group it, I'm going to focus on one or two on this particular hot take, especially Deputy White House counsel and colorful bon vivant around town, Eric Hirschman, who used to work at a major law firm, who was a partner, I think he's returned there, a major law firm that used to represent Donald Trump a long time ago, run by Mark Kasowitz. Remember the name Eric Hirschman. And if you don't remember it, I'm going to show you a couple of clips from his Jan 6 committee testimony so you know how devastating what he's told the special prosecutor and counsel is to Donald Trump. Let's start with the big number, 71. That falls into a number of categories. That's lawyers who are all on Donald Trump's payroll, private capacity, lawyers for Donald Trump's campaign, lawyers who worked in the White House, like Deputy White House counsel Eric Hirschman, White House counsel Pat Cipollone, Deputy White House counsel Pat Philbin, and the list continues. That includes, and we'll just stay in lawyers for a minute, of the 71, Department of Justice employees, including the Attorney General, Bill Barr, the Acting Attorney General, Jeff Rosen, the other Acting Attorney General, the other Acting Deputy Attorney General. I mean, Donald Trump went through so many Attorney Generals, starting in December and January until he left. It's almost hard to keep track of, but you know who kept track of it? Jack Smith. We then have aides, people that worked in and around the White House for Donald Trump and others associated with Donald Trump, like Mark Meadows, like Cassidy Hutchinson and Miss Westerhout, the people that were the eyes and ears and flies on the wall to history. They're going to testify and have already testified. That's the point I'm trying to make. They've already testified. They're going to testify again at trial. Everything I'm saying about the 71 isn't like the Department of Justice is going to call these people into the court in front of a jury and then look at each other and go, I wonder what this person's going to say. They know what this person's going to say. There's a transcript. They already gave a sworn statement or an interview or a proffer to the Department of Justice. And if they lied there, a penalty of perjury and a crime, they've testified to the grand jury in the District of Columbia against Donald Trump. You know who else knows what they're going to say? Donald Trump and his lawyers, because they've gotten all the transcripts in advance. It's only news to us exactly how all of this jigsaw puzzle was going to be assembled by Jack Smith, and now we know by the 165-page presentation. Lawyers, Department of Justice, private and campaign, aides, assistants that ran around for the various people, top people and bottom people at the campaign, Donald Trump's campaign, in the White House, that worked for Mark Meadows, that worked for others, other external, quote-unquote, advisors, like Steve Bannon. I mean, they may not be testifying against him, but there's evidence to support statements that all these people made, so they're going to end up testifying against him. Close personal aides to Donald Trump since they were teenagers, like Dan Scavino, who ran his social media and Twitter account. Not all the mean tweets came from Donald Trump. Many of them came by Dan Scavino masquerading and ghostwriting for Donald Trump. Now I want to talk about one in particular. And then we've got, of course, other officers in the campaign and that type of thing. When you total it all up, you got 71 cooperating witnesses or witnesses against Donald Trump in a sprawling new report in a way that wasn't in, you know what, if you line up the indictment, and this makes sense, the indictment next to the new report, 165 pages, there's a bit of a mismatch. The indictment, the superseding indictment, and the one that preceded it are surgical. They're surgical. They're efficient. There's not a stray word or extra word listed. There's not more evidence that needs to be disclosed to satisfy the elements to avoid dismissal. But now, because of the commands by the Supreme Court that Judge Chutkan undergo a fact-based analysis of context and evidence compared to facts in order to find out what fits into the immunity buckets, whether this Donald Trump's going to be immune or not, then Jack Smith had to put 71 witnesses and information before the American people before the election. He had no choice. But his fault. The timing was set by the Department of Justice and Donald Trump's delays. That's why we're in October. I should have been doing this hot take in March, but I digress. Let's get to Eric Hirschman. I've done commentary and analysis on Eric Hirschman before. Colorful character, very New York, and I mean that in a good way, as also a New York lawyer. I don't know how he got his way into the White House. Many of Mark Kazowitz's law firm served in the administration of Donald Trump. I think the ambassador to Israel was another partner at that firm, and Eric Hirschman got in there as well. That's a firm that likes to be sort of politically connected. So it's a little bit of a revolving door at the time between that Kazowitz firm and Trump's White House, and this is how Eric Hirschman, I believe, got there. Now, Eric Hirschman is famous for a number of things that he told the Jan 6 committee and will testify at trial for Jack Smith. First of all, he had two interactions. I'm going to play you the clip of his testimony before the Jan 6 committee. One with John Eastman, who's that half-baked constitutional scholar, too smart by half guy who, along with Ken Chesborough, devised the plan to try to overthrow the will of the people by using fake electors and lawsuits to try to get Mike Pence to pressure him not to recognize the legitimate Biden electoral votes and give the election over to Donald Trump. That guy used to be a law professor, right? A federal judge in California already ruled that he should be stripped of his attorney-client privilege because he was participating in a fraud or crime with Donald Trump. He's been indicted. He's lost his bar license or is about to. He lost his position in the law school. That John Eastman. Conversation between Eric Hirschman that I've known about and John Eastman towards the end. Because one of Eric Hirschman's major jobs that he testified to, no doubt to the special counsel, was to regularly, daily update Trump directly with updates about the quote-unquote fraud investigations in the battleground states to see if there was any outcome dispositive fraud, which there was not. And every day, Eric Hirschman and Pat Cipollone would tell Donald Trump, can't find any fraud. All these fraud theories are ridiculous. If you bring in, this is Eric Hirschman now to Donald Trump, if you bring these fraud theories into a courtroom, they're going to get laughed at because they're bullshit. That is a direct quote from Eric Hirschman. Why is that testimony important? Because it shows you the criminal mind of Donald Trump, that he was told information, that he was willfully blind and buried his head in the sand to avoid knowing. And knowing that information from people that he paid, the people of trust in the White House, he went on television, he went in social media. He's continuing to maintain that he thinks there was outcome determinative fraud and he should have won the election, when he knows from that alone and forensic audits that he paid for from outside vote examiners who told him the same thing, that there was no outcome determinative fraud. That goes to mens rea for Donald Trump. Eric Hirschman has a conversation with John Eastman where John Eastman raises again some crazy lawsuit that he wants to file in one of the battleground states, and John Eastman cuts him off at the knees with a withering comment, and we have a clip for you here. Let's play it.
It was the day after Eastman, I don't remember why he called me, and he texted me or called me, wanted to talk with me, and he said he couldn't reach others. And he started to ask me about something dealing with Georgia and preserving something potentially for appeal. And I said to him, "Are you out of your effing mind?" Right? I said, I only want to hear two words coming out of your mouth from now on: orderly transition. And I screamed, I said, I don't want to hear any other effing words coming out of your mouth, no matter what, other than orderly transition. Repeat those words to me. And I screamed that, and eventually he said, orderly transition. I said, good, John. Now I'm going to give you the best free legal advice you're ever getting in your life. Get a great effing criminal defense lawyer. You're going to need it. And then I hung up on him.
Okay. All I want to hear is peaceful transfer of power out of your mouth. And here's some free legal advice. Get a criminal defense lawyer. Boy, was Eric Hirschman right about that. The second interaction where they're going to use Eric Hirschman is in his interactions with Rudy Giuliani, who he famously named and titled Captain Crazy. He was captain of Team Crazy. And Giuliani, who was brought in apparently, according to this new filing, by Steve Bannon, the right-wing MAGA podcaster, QAnon conspiracy theorist, who had a lot bigger role in the pressure campaign against Mike Pence than was ever first known until this filing. Bannon also apparently brought in Giuliani and anointed him captain of Team Crazy. And on Team Crazy, we had, this list of 71 witnesses, including another 6 co-conspirators. Rudy Giuliani lost his bar license twice and indicted twice. Sidney Powell, indicted once and pled guilty. Ken Chesborough, indicted twice and pled guilty once. Jenna Ellis, pled guilty. And we could go on. There are others. And so there's this conversation, which I love, that was reported and testified to the Jan 6 committee by this same Eric Hirschman. And I want to play you that clip. Let's play that clip.
Said about his call with Mayor Giuliani on the morning of the 6th.
The morning of January 6th, I think he called me out of the blue, right? And I was like getting dressed. And we had an intellectual discussion about Eastman's, I don't know if it's Eastman's theory per se, but the VP's role. And he was asking me my view and analysis and then the practical implications of it. And when we finished, he said, I believe that, you're probably right. I think he thought when we're done that it would be something he'd have to consider if he was sitting on the bench. But he'd probably come down in that, you couldn't interpret it or sustain the argument. Long term.
71-0. That's what we're watching. And it's the reason this list, I could do 71 hot takes on each and every of these witnesses. Now they're numbered, but we know who they are. And don't get excited. I know some people are like, don't out everybody. The ones I'm going to out, don't worry. They're all MAGA, dyed in the wool, true believers. Number one, literally number one in the new filing by Jack Smith is Bannon. Number 21, Mark Meadows. Number 45, Dan Scavino, who did all of his mean posting and tried to implore Donald Trump to stop the violence and stop the rioting. Only he could do it, and he didn't do it. Number 4, Jason Miller still works closely with Donald Trump. Number 52, former Attorney General Bill Barr, who left after Jan 6th and started the revolving door. And I could go on. And maybe on our next podcast on Legal AF, I will. But I wanted to focus on somebody like Eric Hirschman so that you understand. Now multiply him and make him a 5, 6, 7 hour testimony about everything that he saw in the White House, advising Trump without attorney-client privilege being asserted, because it can't be, it's been stripped away. Make him testify in front of that jury, and now multiply that by 70 more people. Every day, think of the trial. This trial is going to be a 6 to 8 month trial. It's just going to be weeks devoted. You know, I think there's many different ways. I'll talk about this as a trial lawyer. There's many different ways that the government can present their evidence. They could do it chronologically and bring in the witnesses on that. They could do it thematically, or they could do it by title. And if you did it by title, by position, there would be like 2 weeks of nothing but lawyers against Donald Trump. His lawyers against him now. White House lawyers like Eric Hirschman, campaign lawyers, private lawyers, Department of Justice lawyers. That takes 2 weeks or 3 weeks of time. Then it's like executive assistants and aides to the president at the time, or people around the president, or Mike Pence at the time, and bring all of them in. Then bring in people who are fact witnesses like Michael Luttig, a judge, conservative, Republican, icon, constitutional scholar, defender of the presidency, regularly appears with me on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF for interviews, because he's the one that Steve Bannon, number 1 on the hit parade, said, F him, F that lawyer advising Pence not to recognize Donald Trump's fake electors. F him. Well, we'll bring on the guy that he said F him to, and we'll have an interview with him really soon. I'm arranging it right now. So then you got those kind of people. Then you've got the, after you get through the lawyer, you got the elected officials, Mike Pence, all the people that Donald Trump picked up the phone and called, all the people that were hunkering under their desks, including Republicans, while the Capitol's rioted and sieged, all the people that ran in to Donald Trump to try to convince him to call off the dogs, and he wouldn't. His former press secretaries and media advisors. Everybody's going to have an R next to their name. There won't be a Democrat for like maybe the entire trial testifying. How is it political? All the witnesses against him are Republicans, including ones he put on the payroll and hired. And so there'll be weeks of elected officials and election officials in the battleground states and speakers of the House and secretaries of state of the various states that Donald Trump picked up the phone and called. And so on, and so on, and so on, filling out the rest of the 71. We'll continue to follow it and give you our perspective without blowing smoke or sunshine on Legal AF. Find out what 40 million people a month already know, that Legal AF is the home of legal and political commentary and analysis like no other. We have so much to talk about. MeidasTouch and Legal AF got together and formed a new channel. We call it Legal AF MTN for MeidasTouch Network. Go on YouTube, free subscribe. We're going to hit, this is like a record, we're going to hit 200,000 subscribers in the first month of our existence with your help, of course. And I'm personally inviting you to a free subscribe and join us. That's where I'll be curating, and as the executive producer, all of the type of analysis and commentary you've come to love. I'll be bringing over people from the Meidas universe, other legal and political commentators, and outside voices you haven't heard from yet. I don't want to spoil it. We got a big group, a pro-democracy, court accountability there, a group that's going to come join us and do regular updates over there. We got an exclusive new show called Unprecedented. Once a week, we're going to look at the United States Supreme Court top to bottom, side to side, including its ethics scandals, things that they hear in oral argument, their rulings, the things they don't rule on, how they get to those rulings, and all on Unprecedented, only on Legal AF MTN. So free subscribe there. And until my next hot take and my next Legal AF podcast, this is Michael Popak, and I'm reporting.
Okay, so let's go to a commercial break here, and we'll be right back.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Ruth McLaughlin, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you. Original.
It's never the Republicans who ever bring up race.
Is she Indian or is she black? She was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
This woman, this disaster whose only qualification was having a vagina and the right skin color.
Either Kamala Harris, she's the original Haktua girl.
She's never earned or won anything.
Pimp's trying to find a woman that's weak. You know what I mean, man? Jive turkey?
That's not how I remember Kamala Harris speaking. That sounded a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more jive to me.
Kamala Harris is a JV player. She is a DEI pick.
She was a DEI hire.
The DEI vice president. She would be the queen of DEI if she were elected.
Affirmative action. You're selected because the melanin in the content of your skin.
Is it possible that she's getting whiter?
Whiter?
Yeah.
I think they've been.
Have you seen her lately? Like, it is weird. It's like she's like a biracial werewolf. Just.
I've noticed she started wearing.
Straightening.
She's a DEI hire, right? She's a woman. She's colored, therefore she's got to be good.
So racist.
What will you tell your kids? That you voted for a felon and a criminal, supported a man found guilty by a citizen jury, went into the voting booth happy to pull the lever for the only former president in history to bear the mark of criminal shame. Will you tell them that breaking the law is how they should live their lives? That lying to their families about porn stars and hush money is how they should behave? Do you want your son to treat women like a man who was found to have committed sexual assault? Do you want your daughter to be a victim of a man like him?
You going up the escalator? I'm going to be dating her in 10 years. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the...
Will you tell them that he was honest, that he was a good man,
Very fine people on both sides.
that he treated people the way you've taught them?
Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
Will you tell them you're proud of his cruelty, happy with the ugly insults,
I mean, I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers.
the attacks on women, and the endless lies, that the chaos, death, and danger he brought was worth it? We know it's hard to walk away and put country over party, but your kids are watching. You're not just voting for your future, you're voting for theirs.
Welcome to the Trump 2024 convention, brought to you by Project 2025. This week in the horrible city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, you'll see the best of the Trump Project 2025 party. It's a bold vision for a bright future. With Trump Project 2025, you'll love how new tariffs will make everything more expensive and set off runaway inflation. We know you'll appreciate paying for the big tax cut our struggling billionaires need. When you seniors are done freeloading, check out Project 2025's plan to end Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. So get out of that nursing home bed and get back to work. And ladies, this convention has so much in store for you. With Project 2025, you'll learn how good you'll have it in the kitchen. Girls, if your marriage isn't working out, you'll need Project 2025's helpful tips to keep the romance alive, even if he's abusive, because we're getting rid of divorce. And if Mr. Wrong gets you pregnant, welcome to motherhood, because we've ended Roe v. Wade and we're going to criminalize birth control. And minorities, Well, you didn't need those silly voting rights anyway. For you Jews, Muslims, Mormons, and other fake religions, you'll get a head start on learning America is a Christian nation. Project 2025 is Donald Trump's plan for your future, and it couldn't be any brighter.
Project 2025 Bright Future Guarantee applies to white evangelical Christian men only. Other conditions may apply. Offer not valid in a functioning republic.
Driver's license, registration.
Here you go, sir. How's your day going?
That's your daughter?
Sure is.
Abigail, right?
How do you know her?
Were you about 8 weeks pregnant? So you've been spotting recently. You've had any cramps or nausea?
That's personal.
You've been taking your prenatal vitamins?
Excuse me?
Are you ticketing me for something?
Where are you heading, Abigail?
To go see my older sister, Natalie.
Well, that's strange. 'Cause it says here that Natalie's at a concert in Dallas. And your navigation is set to a women's health clinic in one of those abortion states.
We have the right to travel.
Not anymore. Step out of the car.
Please, officer.
Both of you out now. You, sir, are under arrest for crossing state lines to obtain an abortion for a minor under your care. And you, young lady, well, you're under arrest for evading motherhood.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Welcome back. So, ow, Moki. As you can see, things are still in the works, but it seems to me like the case is building up a pretty good momentum here, and you know, it doesn't look like Trump is going to have an easy time of it if he thought that delaying it or trying to, you know, have the Supreme Court do anything with it was going to help him in any way. It doesn't look like that's going to work, or at least not work much. So if he loses, you know, the election, he's going to have a huge torpedo coming up on him in a bad way, because without the presidency, without being president, he's going to get hit. Okay, so I hope, you know, that he loses. I mean, pretty sure that he will, but I'm just hoping that everything happens according to the way it should if we want to see justice in this country over a matter that really shouldn't have ever occurred at all. If we give a shit at all about law and order in this country, we have to protect our democracy and the rules that surround it. Okay, I mean, what the hell kind of a government do we have if we're not going to do that much, you know, to protect it? You might as well just hand it over to whoever country wants it, right? All right, so anyway, there's this article here that I want to touch on here. from Politico, written by Ariel Wittenberg, and this was written yesterday, entitled Helene hit Trump strongholds in Georgia and North Carolina. It could swing the election. And they're talking about Hurricane Helene. Hurricane Helene hit especially hard in heavily Republican areas of Georgia and North Carolina, a fact that could work to Donald Trump's disadvantage in the two swing states. Research has shown that major disasters can influence both voter turnout and voter preference, and Helene has pushed this contest into novel territory. It's the first catastrophic event in U.S. history to hit two critical swing states within 6 weeks of a presidential election, based on a Politico's E&E News analysis of data compiled by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The challenge for Trump, the parts of western North Carolina and eastern Georgia that were flooded by the monster storm, are largely Republican. In 2020, he won 61% of the vote in the North Carolina counties that were declared a disaster after Helene. He won 54% of the vote in Georgia's disaster counties. Both Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris this week visited Georgia, a state that President Biden won by just 11,779 votes in 2020. Georgia and North Carolina each have 16 electoral votes, and polls show that Trump is leading Harris by about 1 percentage point in each state, well within the margin of error. Quote, there's going to be a lot of voting alterations, and it probably is going to affect turnout, unquote, said Andy Jackson, director of the John Locke Foundation's Civitas Center for Public Integrity, a free market think tank in North Carolina. Now, both states face crucial decisions in the next few days about how to help people register and vote after massive flooding ripped away roads, shuttered towns, and dispersed residents. Those include whether to extend next week's voter registration deadlines, grant more time for voters to cast absentee ballots, and set up new polling places in areas where floods destroyed roads. State records show that nearly 40,000 absentee ballots were mailed to voters in the 25 North Carolina counties that were declared a disaster following Helene. Fewer than 1,000 have been returned. In eastern Georgia's heavily Democratic Richmond County, 3 of 4 early voting sites appear to be undamaged. County Elections Chief Travis Doss Jr. said Friday Doss's staff has also reached out to all 43 Election Day sites to determine their status, but has not heard back from about 30 of them due to power and internet outages. Quote, until we get out there to assess for power and whatnot, I'm not sure, unquote, what the situation will be, Doss said. Quote, right now, of course, our immediate concerns were absentee and voting registration, and then the next step is early voting, and then the next step is voting day, unquote. Helene hit some predominantly Democratic communities hard, too, adding to the uncertainty. In North Carolina, Buncombe County was affected in really bad ways, and that is a liberal bastion, unquote, said Chris Cooper, a political scientist at Western Carolina University. Quote, and Watauga is in really bad shape, also a blue-leaning county, unquote. Overall, Helene could, quote, dramatically change who is the electorate, unquote, Cooper said. Quoted, a state like North Carolina, where margins matter, then every little tweak to the electoral could be the tweak that makes the difference, unquote, Cooper added. Quote, it's right on the razor's edge between red and blue, unquote. County elections offices in North Carolina, 5 of which remain closed Thursday, will assess damage to early voting sites and polling stations to determine, quote, which facilities won't be available, unquote. Karen Brinson Bell, executive director of the State Board of Elections, said this week, when the North Carolina legislature meets Wednesday, it could give counties money for emergency polling places and extend both the October 11 registration deadline and the Election Day deadline for mail-in ballots to be received. And in Georgia, where Monday is the last day to register to vote, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger said in a statement that, quote, physical infrastructure, unquote, will be in place when early voting starts October 15. Counties having to relocate early voting locations must notify voters, Raffensperger said. After past disasters, states have similarly extended deadlines for registering to vote, and submitting absentee ballots opened new polling places and allowed displaced residents to vote by email or fax. Republicans have at times opposed those efforts, including after the COVID pandemic. But such actions have had varied results, according to studies that are gaining prominence at 6 states from Florida to Virginia as they deal with damage from Helene. Quote, you need to do everything possible to erect emergency polling places in generally the same places voters are used to voting, unquote, said Kevin Morris, a voting policy scholar at the Brennan Center for Justice. A 2022 study by Morris found that voter turnout fell below historical averages in the heavily Republican panhandle counties of Florida after Hurricane Michael demolished the area in October of 2018. Although Florida made it easier to vote by absentee ballots, voters were confused by the state's move to close and consolidate polling places. They weren't sure where to go on Election Day. Quote, if a voter's house is damaged or whatever else and they realize suddenly their polling place has moved, then maybe that's the straw that makes it too much for them to vote, unquote, Morris told E&E News. Quote, a lot of the decreased turnout was attributable to the closure of polling places around the panhandle, unquote. After Hurricane Florence hit North Carolina in September 2018, the state extended the registration deadline and let counties relocate voting sites. But in 2020, when the Elections Board relaxed absentee voting requirements amid the pandemic, GOP lawmakers said the board had overstepped its authority and later changed state election rules. One change ended a grace period that allowed mail-in ballots to be received 3 days after Election Day. Quote, there's definitely a layer of politics on top of any decision they make given what happened after COVID, unquote, said Cooper, the Western Carolina professor. Other election year disasters do not appear to have directly affected the outcomes of previous presidential races. Hurricane Sandy struck uncontested states such as Connecticut, New York, New Jersey in late October 2012, and then President Barack Obama won all 3. Obama did arguably gain political benefits from his administration's handling of the storm, which drew praise at the time from Republican New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Hurricane Matthew, in October 2016, hit only one contested state, Florida, and spread damage along the Atlantic coast, a mix of Democratic and Republican areas. But overall, research shows that disasters affect voter turnout. Sandy hit the tri-state area 1 week before the 2012 presidential election, leading some New York voters to cast ballots in makeshift voting tents, powered by generators in neighborhoods that didn't have electricity. Decisions by New Jersey officials to keep voting accessible to storm victims proved more controversial. The Republican lieutenant governor at the time, Kim Guadagno, ruled that anyone who was displaced by Sandy could be designated an overseas voter, allowing them to cast ballots by fax and email. The decision overwhelmed county governments by suddenly inundating them with thousands of fax and email applications. In 2014, Rutgers Law School report citizens criticized Guadagno's decision, saying that remote voting caused quote-unquote chaos and made electronic votes vulnerable to hacking. Although, quote, emergency action was warranted, internet and email voting was not the solution, unquote, report author Penny Venetis said at the time. Another study, whoops. Hold on. Another study found that Sandy, quote, made little difference, unquote, in determining whether people in New York City would vote, partly because voters were highly motivated to re-elect Obama. When people see an election as historic or potentially having long-lasting effects on their community, they are willing to endure costs such as low temperatures, long lines, and even traveling to distant polling places, the researchers found. So, okay, sorry for the little hiccup there. So the hurricane damaged some areas of the country that are like battleground states right now. Okay, what a coincidence, huh? So that should worry not just Trump, but both sides, really, because, you know, some of the areas are Democrat and some are Republican, and this couldn't happen at a worse time. But, you know, this is what happens when, you know, you have elections at this point in the year where hurricanes are hitting, you know, along. That's why we should have done it in the summer, right? We should have done our fucking election in the summer. When the weather was better, I think, you know. And the thing of it is that having it done now where we're, you know, I mean, another hurricane could come up and hit again before that election happens in November. So, you know, it's, you know, people will be bitching. If Trump loses, they'll blame it on the weather and the fact that, you know, or that the government didn't do enough there to fix that or some damn thing. You know what I'm saying? This will give him something else to use as a bludgeon to try to fight the results of a lost election, another lost election. Okay, that's what he'll bitch about that. So, regardless of how that shakes down, he'll keep that nugget there under his hat for later use. Okay, just like him trying to come out the other day and say that Biden wasn't sending any FEMA money to Florida or these damaged areas, and then J.D. Vance said almost at the same moment in another part of the country, he wanted to thank FEMA for helping the people in Florida, you know. So, I mean, it's just, you know, the bullshit train continues, but apparently these two don't talk enough to each other, so they can't get their shit story straight, because, you know, now the media is catching on to, you know, onto what they're doing here. But, you know, it's going to be a contested election. I think everyone now is pretty much in agreement, because I think, you know, and this is just my impression, I think that the media has, by and large, kind of figured out that Trump is probably going to lose, okay? They think the odds are he's going to lose, okay? But what they are assuming is going to happen, and because they have very good reason to believe that this will happen, is that he'll contest the election. When he loses, he will contest it, and he's going to need excuses, and this storm here is going to be one of those excuses, because this is what, you know, 30-something days outside of the election here, so you know, it's as good excuse as any. I mean, he's going to continue to say, oh, most Americans want me in the office and all that, even though none of the polling or none of the you know, momentum of his campaign is showing it. His, you know, people at his rallies, they're less and less listening to him talk. Okay, there's just a couple of days ago, he was at a rally where people were making videos of the people, you know, in the audience, and there was like whole sections of just emptiness. There was no people sitting there. So, you know, people are not coming out like they did when he first ran for president. And this has been going on all year long now. I mean, it's not something new, okay, but he's been steadily losing attention from his own base, and some of his base has just up and left him, okay? So, like I said, I mean, these are signs that it doesn't look good for Trump, and right now he's going to play the dirty game to try to overturn an election if he thinks he can do it. I mean, while Biden's still president, you know, I'm sorry, but if Biden's in there, you know, I don't think he's going to be able to get any far. I mean, if it was a Republican that was in there as president, you know, but I don't think, you know, you know, he's going to have a hard uphill battle to try to undo it when he loses. Okay, I don't see the possibility for him to be able to do that. And you know, I think people by now have learned that if you team up with him, if he asks you to be his lawyer or something like that, you better have a plan, a contingency plan for when you try to do anything for him, because you're going to lose your career. You're going to lose your job. You're going to lose your license or whatever the fuck you got that makes you what you are. you're going to lose all that, and you might even lose your freedom, okay? Because a lot of people that sat next to him, you know, and got him into the White House and then did all these things for him, a lot of these people are facing justice themselves, and some are already sitting in prison right now, okay? I mean, what he's done is way worse than anything that Richard Nixon ever did. Okay, Watergate is nothing compared to the crap that Trump has got dangling over his head. And right now, he thinks his 3 or 4 lawyers that he's got is going to be able to go up against the dozens and dozens of government lawyers that are going to be against them. You know, how far does he think he's going to get with that, with this little team? I mean, yeah, he may have bought off some judges and stuff like that, but right now, with the Supreme Court having told them, well, you need to be more specific about what's, you know, an official act and what isn't an official act. Actually, what they did was they made it harder now for Trump to win that case, because now they were required to climb a little bit higher to make the case bigger in order to show proof of these things, and they did. So now Trump is not going to have an as easy time as before. If he'd have just left the Supreme Court alone and not tell them to open their yap, you know, they might have had areas where they could have poked holes in the case. Well, now the case is more airtight than it ever was, and now they got 70 some odd fucking witnesses that they're going to have to listen to. So, like I said, this is really going to be a very dirty upcoming year, okay? Especially when Trump loses, okay? It's going to be nasty, and we're going to see a lot of corruption from the Trump side, the MAGA side, a lot of anger and hatred out there from MAGA, because they're not going to accept it. Because if Trump won't accept it, why should they, right? They're gonna just pick up what Trump says, and they're gonna parrot that, like, you know, they're going to say the same thing. And I think that, you know, America right now, the mood in this country is that we are tired of Trump. We really are. We're tired of Trump. We're tired of the negative energy that he creates, that he surrounds himself with, and he sucks all of us into it like some fucking pathetic black hole, okay? And you know, America just wants that to go away, okay? Like a bad cold, we want to get rid of it. We want this cold to go away because it's keeping us from doing our best. It's keeping our country from being the best. Because when he's out there, when his people are out there, when his influence is out there, it's not a good thing. It really isn't. It's really a negative thing that people, you know, when they think about it too long, it's like, oh, forget it, I don't want to think about it no more. Okay, it's kind of like that. It's just the more you think about what he's doing, the deeper you sink yourself into his fucking crimes to see just how black can get. Okay, and he is the darkest of black there is out there. And I'm sorry that for some of you Trump supporters out there, you don't like me when I criticize him, but you know, you didn't have any qualms about criticizing Bill Clinton over just the one little thing that, you know, he did, and what many guys, you know, some of you guys out there, you know, Alex, okay, some of you people out there that do the same damn thing that he did, okay, some of you know. And you consider, and you thought of him as the fucking devil. You despised him for that. Well, here's Trump. And you're mad at us for despising him for doing way worse than, you know, Bill Clinton ever did. Okay? You know? And the dirt is still there. I mean, if we take the time to open Donald Trump's closet any wider, I'm afraid of what more is going to come falling out of that goddamn thing. Because you remember, he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein for a long fucking time. Remember that. Okay? And there's this issue here that's been on people's mind that hasn't been resolved yet, and that's Katie Johnson. You know? She was 13 years old, and she says Donald Trump raped her. Katie Johnson. And that's, you know, that story has been kind of hush-hush for months now. When she came out, she tried to file a lawsuit, but she withdrew the lawsuit when she got death threats from Trump supporters. And so she dropped the case. But, like I said, Katie Johnson, that's a story right there that, you know, people, you know, if we open up that fucking closet a little wider and we see what falls out of it, what else could there be in there about Katie Johnson or even Ivanka Trump, for Christ's sake? I mean, you know, the way he fantasizes about his own goddamn daughter. I mean, where, you know, what else could there be? You know, I mean, we only know about the financial crimes, the political crimes, okay, the campaign crimes, the election crimes. We only know those things right now because he was the president for a while. We don't know about all the other crimes he committed way before that. Things that he still hasn't answered for. I mean, this guy is like I said, he is the blackest of black that there is out there. And the thing is that, you know, as our country stands divided over this man, which only the devil could do something like that, okay? Really, only the devil could accomplish what he's accomplished here, because, you know, evil finds a way. But because Donald Trump is that evil, and he's managed with his mouth and to divide this country to his advantage, and at the same time he's got his tendrils into different aspects of our judicial system, he's really made this country an image of the worst kind of America that we don't really want to be. And I think many of us don't want that. I don't think any of us want our country to turn into that. In fact, I'd bank on that. I really would. I think even Republicans don't want to see our country devolve into some sort of dictatorial oligarchy or whatever the hell you want to call it. Okay, they don't want to see that, because they know from looking at other countries on the world how that shapes out and how the citizens are treated in those cultures. Okay, they don't fucking work, and people spend all their time fighting the system, fighting, you know, protesting, you know, rebelling. I mean, how the hell can you make a living if you're constantly carrying a gun and going after, you know, your government? I mean, it's just, you can't, that's not America. That's not what we're supposed to be about. Okay? We're not supposed to be here to try and overthrow our own goddamn government, because the government is set up in such a way where we have the power, okay, to change it without violence, without doing that. But because you can't get your way, because you're the minority thought, that's how it works. Minority thoughts, you know, will be heard, but they can't be implemented because that's not in the best interests of the majority of the country. Okay? And, you know, I have to say, when you're constantly on the minority side of issues and the majority is always against you, I mean, after a while, aren't you going to say, well, maybe we're not right, because how could everybody always be against every fucking idea we come up with? I mean, can't they like something? Well, the truth is, you know, you guys are really so narrow-minded that you only care about what your little cabal is thinking you're right. You're you know, kissing each other's rings, as it were, in your own group, and you all think you're so smart and everything. But you're not listening to the other side and what their point of view is. You don't want to hear it. You only want your ideas to see the light of day. But you don't care what it does to the other millions of Americans who don't share that opinion. You don't care. And because you're that way, nobody likes you. You know, nobody wants to talk to people that aren't going to be heard. I mean, they're not going to talk to you. And that's one of the things that, you know, so many Republicans have sided with Kamala about, is that Kamala is going to bring back, you know, a little more of that openness to the other side, because We can't deal with MAGA. Okay, MAGA doesn't even want to talk to the rest of the country. They only want what they want, and that's it. No matter how stupid an idea it is that they want it done. They want to snowball right into hell is what they're looking to do. But we're trying to say, I ain't getting on that fucking snowball, and you can't make me, and we're not going to do it. Okay? Because we have lives. We have children. We got futures. We got plans. We got things we need to do. And what you're talking about isn't going to help us. It's only going to make us even worse. You know, the things that Trump thinks he's going to do as president aren't going to happen, isn't going to help the country if it does happen. Okay? And economists have already pointed that out 6 ways from Sunday. Okay? They already explained to people that his ideas are not going to work. Okay? And he's not being very forthcoming to people who ask him more about it. Okay? He's not being more specific or any details. He won't talk about it. So that's turning people off right there. Okay? A guy that's not going to talk about his fucking plans and how he's going to implement them is a person you want to just, you know, he's a snake oil salesman. Okay? You don't want to mess with that. Like I said, it's really sad to see that, you know, our country having to go through this. But at the same time, this is a problem that has been growing in our country for many decades. And it had no choice but to come to this. Really, because we didn't do anything to stop it in a long time. We didn't put the Republicans in their place when it should have been done. When they were starting to get these radical ideas, you know, trickle-down economics and all that crap when that started in the 80s, Democrats didn't put their foot down hard enough on the right wing to smarten them up. And we just let it slide and slide and slide, and now we got this little group of fucking asshats, okay, that think that the world revolves around them and them alone, okay? They're so arrogant and so selfish, and they think they're right about everything, and yet they can't answer a question. They can't take any criticism. They're very paranoid about, you know, their own beliefs, okay? And they are totally devoted to our orange Hitler here, okay? And that's a cult. It's not a political party. It's a cult. And cults are dangerous. We know this from personal experience, all of us. We've seen it happen in this country more than 3 or 4 times already. Oklahoma City bombing, you know, Ruby Ridge, you know, Waco, Texas. We've seen what cults can do. All right, we know this is a bad thing, and that's what MAGA's become, a cult. They are a cult. I mean, January the 6th was another incident here of a cult doing what they do. We can't let cults exist in this country. They don't benefit America. They are not American. They are terrorists. Okay, that's what they are. And to support MAGA, to support Trump, is saying that you don't mind having terrorists in this country. You don't mind that. You don't mind an occasional Oklahoma City bombing. You don't mind, you know, having a riot or two at the Washington D.C. or, you know, or a riot at your state capitol, or, you know, people being shot at or something. You're saying we don't care, or we don't mind it, you know. And I suppose for some people, I guess they would, because they don't mind school shootings or anything like that, right? So I guess, you know, it would be easy to see that happen at some point. I would be afraid that, you know, that would happen because it would further degrade this country. But, you know, these are the times we live in. And so I'm you know, like I said, it's just, you know, to give up our country and hand it over to the MAGA people would be, you know, the biggest disaster ever. I mean, I think it would be worse than World War III, because we would have lost our country without a shot fired, you know. And so I hope people understand where I'm coming from here, okay? Maybe I ain't being too clear, but I don't want you people out there to learn what I'm trying to tell you the hard way by not voting, or by voting for the wrong person, okay? Because you can't unring that bell. once you cast that fucking vote, that's it. That vote is final, okay? So don't go to these polling stations with the intention that, well, I'm just one vote and it ain't gonna matter which way I go. No, it does matter. At the end of the day, every fucking vote's gonna matter in this election, every single one, okay? And for those of you that don't vote, well, I hope you enjoy the end result, no matter which way it goes. But at the same time, if you don't want it to go one way or the other, you need to get out there and vote. It's because, like I said, every vote will count in this election here. And I hope that people get that message. I really do, because this is an important election. I think more important than any other, in my lifetime anyway. This is historic, and our voices must be heard. What kind of a country do we want to be from here on out? What kind of an America do you want? So think about that. And that's it for today. And I will talk to you again another time. So please subscribe, comment, share, and keep your ears open for any health-related matters. And treat each other kindly out there. Try to be respectful. Don't shove your politics in people's face, and you won't get any arguments. So be nice, and I'll talk to you guys later. So take care, everybody.